This was the biggest real estate transaction in the history of the world.
This is the story of the Panama Canal. There is a man-made canal located in Egypt known as the Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. It serves the purpose of connecting Europe to Asia. When you look at the world map, it may appear to be a small canal, but in reality, it is a very long canal, spanning 193 kilometers in length. It took more than 10 years to construct, and it was opened in 1869. You might be wondering, in today's world where airplanes are so common, who still uses ships? But if you look at the data, you will see that the amount of cargo transported through the Suez Canal has consistently increased over the past 10 to 20 years. Seeing the success of the Suez Canal, American shipping companies also began to feel the need for a similar canal, because ships had to circumnavigate the South American continent to travel from East America to West America, or from West America to Europe. Therefore, a decision was made to construct a canal at the land connection point between North and South America, which is now known as the Panama Canal. However, it was not even in anyone's wildest imagination how challenging it would be to construct a canal through Panama, similar to the Suez Canal. In the case of the Suez Canal, it was relatively easy to dig the canal because the land there was several feet higher than the level of the sea. And the biggest challenge here in Panama was the presence of tall mountains and solid rocks within these mountains. Digging the canal here meant excavating these 500-meter tall rocky mountains down to sea level.
The jungle itself is what holds the soil together in Panama. And so when they start digging away and exposing it, gets wet, it no longer has that cohesion. It becomes basically just like a sticky fluid that's going to flow downhill. And whatever's underneath it is going to get smashed.
The Suez was built by the French, and after that, the French were considered experts in this field. They had dug up one canal, and they wouldn't have a problem digging another one. In 1878, a treaty was signed. The same person who'd executed the Suez Canal's master plan executed this one. Ferdinand de Lesseps. To execute this plan, they began construction in 1881. They didn't know about the challenges they would have to face every day. Construction workers here not only had to cut through rocks but also had to save their lives from dangerous and deadly creatures lurking in the dense jungles. This whole project includes passing through the tropical jungles in between. No one had any idea about such an issue at the beginning. But once the project began, mosquitoes, venomous insects, yellow fever, and malaria became nuisances. And there were so many deaths. No one knew that mosquitoes were responsible for spreading yellow fever and malaria. It was the reason so many workers died. Eventually, the company established to build the Panama Canal went bankrupt. The total expenditure also went way beyond their budget, so the company eventually had to drop the project. In 1889, the entire operation was suspended. In actuality, this was impossible. The Atlantic and Pacific are not at the same level. One is higher than the other. If they had gone ahead and built the whole canal dug at sea level, water would flood on one side towards Panama, destroying the whole country. It was going to be a disaster. Allah kept the two oceans separate for a reason. Obviously, there was a flaw in this theory. In the year 1904, when the Americans came here, understanding the importance of the Panama Canal, they once again attempted to complete this project. This new American company that surveyed the area. They also realized that they couldn't build a canal similar to the Suez Canal. The Americans had realized that digging up the mountain was a highly impractical idea. They eventually come up with a very ingenious plan. So, in order to bridge the gap between the mountain and sea level, an artificial lake was created here, which we now know as Gatun Lake. The Charges River was flowing there anyway, and it has been flowing excessively for a few months anyway. The plan they came up with was that when water flows out of the Charges River, it flows in two directions: the Atlantic side and the Pacific side. They planned to block both sides. This way, the water would accumulate, rising in level as a result. This would cause ships to pass through easily. No digging was involved. The key point still remained while blocking both sides. How were ships supposed to get in? Since the lake was higher than the Atlantic and Pacific, there were only two challenges left. One was regarding getting ships to enter the lake and leaving it. This was when they came up with the ingenious plan of setting up locks. They decide they will send the ship up Gatun Lake in 3 stages, eventually bringing them to the level of Gatun Lake. This plan was again ingenious. Think of locks as boxes filled with water. If you enter from the Atlantic, the first lock was the same height as the Atlantic. The ship enters the lock, and the lock gate closes. The second lock is higher, and valves are opened from below, transferring water to the next lock, until it reaches the same level as the previous lock. The lock gate to the next lock open and the ship enter into it. The previous lock is empty now, and the next lock is higher water travel from that lock to the one the ship is in. And the water level between both locks is the same once again. The ship then moves on to the next lock. Then comes the Gatun Lake itself. The previous level of Gatun Lake is then made to be the same level as the lake. After that, you have entered Gatun Lake territory. You travel all the way to the Pacific end, and the same locks are installed there too. You enter the first lock, and its gate closes. Water flows out of this lock into the next. Once the locks are at an equal level, the ship can enter the next lock. In the same way, the water level is made equal again, with the water level decreasing in the lock the ship is in. The ship again makes it to the next lock, and then finally, after the final lock, the ship has crossed the Pacific. Isn't it just ingenious? Instead of digging up a canal, they block 2 sides, making an artificial lake, and then install stage locks on both ends, where ships are lifted or lowered. This way, they have a large reservoir of water with turbines installed where the water level constantly changes to generate electricity. This way, water is not wasted. Then the problem with the Pacific Ocean being at a different level compared to the Atlantic Ocean is completely eliminated. It was 1904, and the canal was built for 10 years until 1914. To use this facility for cargo ships and to reduce months of travel to days, tolls also have to be paid. Almost every year, approximately 14,000 ships cross through here, which means millions of dollars in revenue for the Panamanian government. Ships definitely benefit from this. Consider the distance they would have to cross if it were not the Panama Canal. 30 to 35 days, because of the Panama Canal. Otherwise, it is not only 30 to 35 days, it is also the extra expenditure that comes with those 30 to 35 days. The Panama Canal is a jewel in the history of engineering, without which today the shipping industry would be completely crippled. I hope that you all will also like and share this Get Insights video wholeheartedly.